Thank you for joining XROom, which is India's first AR/VR focused podcast. And today I'm really delighted and honored to have with me Vicki Dobbs Beck, who has more than 30 years of management experience in the entertainment industry. Variety named her a digital innovator to watch in 2020. And in 2019, the Advanced Imaging Society recognized Vicki with a Distinguished Leadership Award for being a significant entertainment industry growth catalyst. Currently, Vicki is the VP Immersive Content Innovation at Ilmxlab, the award-winning division launched by Lucasfilm to pioneer in the field of immersive storytelling. And under Vicki's leadership, Ilmxlab created the groundbreaking VR installation, Carne y Arena, which was the vision of Alejandro Iñárritu. Carne y Arena was chosen as the first ever VR official selection at the Cannes Film Festival and was awarded a special Oscar by the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Science. Thank you, Vicki. It's a really pleasure and honor to have you on the show. So, before we get into the conversation, I would like to start with your background, because 30 years in the world of entertainment. Give us a backstory. How has the industry evolved over the years, and what excites you and what keeps you going?
Well, it's been a long, long time. And believe me, I've seen the industry, the entertainment industry broadly evolve. And then obviously some of the really exciting opportunities that have been, that have emerged more recently in the XR space. So I started at Lucasfilm at Industrial Light and Magic back when they were just starting to film Indiana Jones and Last Crusade. And at that time, there were 6 computer graphic artists at ILM, and I happened to be on the same hall as they. So it's been really interesting from an ILM perspective to watch it grow from 6 computer graphic artists to 5 studios worldwide and several thousand CG artists. So, and one of the things about ILM that I think has carried through my career is they have always strived for excellence and sort of innovation, had an innovation focus, and that actually comes from George Lucas himself. So I consider myself really a catalyst. I'm not a technologist, and I'm not a creative in the classic sense, but I have tried to be a catalyst for change and evolution and taking advantage of new opportunities. Back in the early 90s, I ran a small group called Lucasfilm Learning, and we were doing work that was really at the intersection of storytelling, high quality media, interactivity, and then in this particular case, we were applying it to the education space. And the way you did it back then was with a computer-driven Laserdisc player. So, many people, that's way before many people's time. It was pre-CD-ROM. But for me, we were able to create some pretty compelling experiences back then. They were more experimental than anything, but we did a project called Paul Park Ranger and the Mystery of the Disappearing Ducks. And I think we were really literally decades ahead of our time, because in so many ways, that project as a concept, and in terms of the format and the interface, were perfect for VR. So what happened was I really stayed abreast of the converging paths of the interactive real-time space, and then of course linear film and television. And probably now about 7 or 8 years ago, we started doing some research in high fidelity real-time graphics. And when we applied that to content creation, so we did a project called Trials on Tatooine, which was a VR experience. It really encouraged us to take the next step and set up a studio to create immersive experiences, because we felt that these new technologies enabled an experience that could not be delivered any other way. Literally, it allowed people to step inside the world of Star Wars. And, obviously Disney and Lucasfilm have always been about storytelling. So we felt when there was a new storytelling platform, we needed to be there pioneering. I
have grown up on all the Lucasfilm, right, from your Indiana Jones, Star Wars, and so much. So content creation is more an art of imagination. When you let your imagination grow, you create these great stories which connects the other human in ways where he or she can get excited, in love. I've heard you quote quite a lot of time, storytelling to story living. Would you like to kind of elaborate on that?
Yeah, definitely. Storytelling is, if you think about it, in its traditional sense, it's essentially one-way communication. And what the idea of story living is, you are in a world making meaningful choices that drive the narrative forward. And that is a really empowering idea. And I believe that that's possible with VR and AR. So story living has some, the first important point in any kind of creation is designing, is the right story for the right platform. So in the case of VR in particular, its two great strengths are the power of presence and the power of connection. And the power of presence is really about, inviting people into a rich and detailed world. And the power of connection is about introducing people to compelling characters and allowing you to be able to have a relationship with those characters. So with a rich world filled with compelling characters, then countless stories can unfold, really. And over time, I expect we tend to be in a curated, we take a curated approach to story living, right? Where we're crafting the experience for the visitor. But I do anticipate that over time, we're going to see divergent stories, so branching stories, which could be done today, as well as emergent stories, where the stories emerge from the experience of the visitors. And that's something I'm really excited about for the future, is this idea that the world will evolve based on the choices of those who visit. So lots and lots of possibilities in this story living world, but it's something that we've definitely been leaning into as an idea, both with Vader Immortal, which is our 3-part episodic series, and Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge more recently. We really talk about it as story living experiences.
Right. So the future of storytelling is getting more and more exciting. We are breaking away from the passive viewing experience to interactive viewing experiences. With the help of technology, we will be in the content, because there are these technologies, tools such as haptic feedback, volumetric, and artificial intelligence, where you can create interactive storytelling. You mentioned about Bandersnatch, LBVRE. It's a tool where when you get into the story, the characters around you can possibly create a branching storyline. So it's getting super exciting. What is the role you see of technology in the future of storytelling? Stepping back,
that's a very loaded question. There was a lot in there. Right. As you said earlier, I see technology as enabling new kinds of story-based experiences. Sometimes technology also inspires, and I would say that was true of VR. So just stepping back again, when I first saw the DK, which was the earliest, one of the earliest Oculus headsets, and I put the headset on, I was told what to expect, but I had never experienced it. So when I put that headset on, my mind was blown. I just literally the idea that I could put something on and now I could turn around in 360 degrees and be in a different world than when I take the headset off was mind-blowing, right? So, and I say that because it inspired us to create certain kinds of stories. So in a way, technology wasn't only an enabler, but it was an inspiration. So I do think that it has two components. With regard to AI specifically, I am very excited about AI, and very specifically about using it to help create authentic characters, where you can have interactions that feel authentic, which is really important. You know, when you have a brand like Star Wars, for example, if you're going to allow people to engage in a meaningful way with characters, it really does have to feel authentic. It has to feel true to the character that people have come to, to know and love or be afraid of, in the case of Darth Vader or whatever it is. So I think AI is going to be critical in that. The other thing I would say, and this is a little bit off, a little bit of a right turn from what you were talking about, but we think a lot about cross-platform storytelling, right? Not one to the exclusion of the other, but how can you sort of create almost an ecosystem of story experiences? And sometimes I talk about it as a mosaic, right? So each tile in the mosaic is an experience that can stand on its own, but the design is much bigger. And when you step back and you see all the tiles in the mosaic, it reveals a much richer, more complex design, right? So I don't see, with the emergence of these new technologies, I don't see other, more traditional forms of entertainment going away. I just see the sort of mosaic becoming much, much richer. And I think each platform has its great strengths. And one of the things that I think is an incredibly exciting opportunity for creators of the future is to design against that entire backdrop, to sort of rise above and have a concept for the total experience that you're trying to deliver, and then creating individual story experiences within that mosaic. So for me, AI is yes, you can go to the dark side if you really think about it, but AI is coming. And, so for me, I want to use it for good. I want to, and part of what that means, I think, in our world is bringing characters to life in meaningful ways.
And there are these gaming engines which are enabling photorealistic characters, and obviously it's adding so much benefit. We have something called as virtual production, though it's in a very nascent stage, but it's a tool which could take away green screen. It could take away the hassles of a production house trying to run around and get permissions for shoot. Because here in India, it's crazy. If you want to shoot, the permissions are a huge issue. If you have virtual production, you don't need green screen, then you could shoot in studios, and it just creates so much opportunity. So technology, it's loaded. All of those, it's adding a lot of benefits. But still, if you see some of the biggest studios, some of the biggest ad agencies, the production houses are still not adopting or adapting to these technologies or the potential of immersive tech. How do you nudge content creators, studios, advertising agencies, and production house to the importance of immersive tech?
That's a really good question. And actually, there was something that in response to your previous question, which I think is related, is I do think it's really important as creators to be experimenting now in the early stages and learning, because we know, to your point, that technology is going to continue to evolve and probably at an accelerated rate. And to be leaders in the industry, I think we have to understand what it takes to be powerful creators. So I think that that is something that we at Ilmxlab have really set our sights on. But with the broader companies and studios and so forth, I honestly believe you have to show, not tell. And that's why we've been doing a lot of experimentation in addition to creating projects that, are fully rendered projects that are out in the market. We've been experimenting so that we can demonstrate to people what the potential power is, particularly in AR, because, it's sort of, and I'm talking really AR of the future. So when we have robust glasses with wide field of view and so forth, I think that, that is something that has, it might be the single biggest disruptor of our lifetime. And I think that those of us that work in it all the time, we're really excited about its potential. But I do understand that not everyone sees that potential. And that's why I say we have to create these experiments to show people what the power is, rather than just talk about it. We did that with VR, and it's still, for very big companies, VR is still a relatively small opportunity in the scheme of opportunities. So I think we just keep pushing the state of the art, and eventually, I think there's likely to be a single device that delivers, all shades of reality. And when that happens, we want to be there as thoughtful and innovative creators, so that we can take advantage of that opportunity. The other thing that's just been wild in the face of COVID is the explosion of streaming, right? I think that has fundamentally disrupted linear entertainment in a really positive way. So there's so much energy going into streaming in a really positive way, because basically all of the rules got broken. You don't have to, like, a television episode isn't always 22 minutes and 13 episodes, and all of those things. We basically took off the table with streaming, and we said, let the content be what it needs to be most compelling. If that's 4 episodes, fine. If that's one 1-hour episode and the second one is an hour and 15 minutes, fine. I mean, so there's all this activity happening in the streaming space, which I find incredibly exciting and invigorating. And that is where a lot of energy is going. But, I think a lot of the stuff that we're working on is our experiences and industries and ecosystems really that will that are a little farther out, and that they will continue to evolve, and that eventually we'll have this really really vast set of opportunities within which to create and deliver entertainment.
Right. And you mentioned that the rules are being broken, and I guess that is obviously, it's a very profound thing, because if you go to see, because of the pandemic, everything is impacted. The theaters have been shut for over a year. And you mentioned the streaming has really benefited. So there's one side, there's a disruption, and then there's one side, there's transformation. The gaming industry is also been flourishing. The production obviously is impacted, but the consumption is exploded. On this, the social media, the content is being completely overload, if you might say, because there's a short form content, there's long form content. So, and there is this NFT, which is creating non-fungible tokens, which are this other layer which is being added for content creators to now look and say, oh wow, this is a tool where we could start monetizing. So for content creation, everything starts with monetization and ends over there also. So with AR VR at this point in time, we haven't seen the monetization. So when do you think virtual reality will start making money?
We have been monetizing experiences in VR. We have very intentionally at Ilmxlab focused on immersive storytelling as opposed to delivering classic games. But I would argue that people are starting to make money in the VR space, and I think that ecosystem is going to continue to evolve and to grow. And remember that Mark Zuckerberg at one point said he thought that there needed to be 10 million devices of a single device in the marketplace in order for it to be a self-sustaining ecosystem. And my suspicion, I mean, we don't know the numbers, right? But my suspicion is that, you know, in the not too distant future, we're going to approach that. And at which point, you know, there will be this proliferation of content and experiences because it will become a self-sustaining ecosystem. So I think we're getting there. And I certainly think that these tetherless headsets like the Quest 2 are game changers. They were game changers as creators, you know, I mean, certainly lightsaber battles where you can move around in 360 degrees is a pretty profoundly satisfying experience. And prior to that, you know, we had to, you know, we were getting wrapped up in cords and that kind of thing. The other thing that's so exciting, and this is why I also feel really bullish about it, is that these tetherless headsets are very accessible in terms of, you know, like I said I didn't consider myself a technologist, and sometimes I'm a technology disaster. And, you know, I could easily set the Quest up at home and get right into it. And then I could also share that with my, you know, family and friends and have them experience it in ways that were just not possible before. So what I would argue is the audience is dramatically expanding. So I think it's really important to design experiences within the mosaic that offer these different kinds of opportunities. And in doing so, we will expand the audience. And by virtue of that, we will move faster and closer to a self-sustaining ecosystem. You
said the tetherless headsets, you know, obviously it's added so much. Just 5 years back, you know, when the Oculus, there was a tethered headset and the price point with the computer and everything was close to 3,000 USD. And right now we have the Oculus Quest 2, which is like 10x price reduction and the quality is improved. And I'm excited for what's gonna come in the next 5 or 10 years. And when all of these converges, you know, when we have 5G, which will help in the streaming, and when we have AI and blockchain and then NFT, creating a layer and adding a layer and monetization, I'm excited for what, you know, the storytelling could look like, you know, and only if these ad agencies and these big production houses look into the future and understand that what is coming is super exciting and prepare for the future. I think media and entertainment industry could get sustainable. Do you see a full-length virtual reality film happening anytime soon from Hollywood? Do you see that as a possibility?
As I said, I think it's the right story for the right platform. And I think that if when you think about Vader Immortal, which was 3 episodes of immersive storytelling, that when you did it when you did them in succession, you know, it probably took people to go through the story side. There was also the lightsaber dojo, which was, you know, very active lightsaber training. But if you did the story pieces in succession, that would probably be about 1.5 hours to 2 hours of content. Now, granted, you are active in that, but one could almost argue it's about the same length as a feature film. So, but I think we obviously intentionally designed to the strengths of the VR platform. So we put you in a really compelling world, and we had you interact with very powerful and compelling characters like Darth Vader for one, but there were quite a number of characters. So I feel like that might be a better way to think about it than a feature film in VR, unless you are really playing to the strengths of the VR platform. Does that make sense?
Yeah, fair enough. So, what is the role of location-based virtual reality entertainment centers in driving adoption of these technologies? And is there any partnership that you're building, content that you're creating for LBVREs?
Well, we did a number of experiences, location-based experiences with the Void. I am a really big fan of location-based VR experiences. And it doesn't require you to have made a big investment in a piece of hardware, et cetera. You can just come in and experience and enjoy. The other thing that location-based is really great at, and we talked about it with the Void, which was this idea of hyper reality, right? Where you invoke all of the senses in a way that you can't currently do in the home. So, what you, not only what you see, but what you feel, and what you touch, what you smell, and all of those things, really enhance the experience. So with the Void, what would happen is if you saw a wall in the virtual world and you reached out and touched it, there would actually be a wall there. And that one-to-one mapping causes your brain to really buy into the reality of the situation. In addition, you control 100% of the environment. So there are things that you can do that you couldn't do in the home. For me, the strengths of location-based is you can deliver scope and scale. You can invoke all of the senses. And it was also a social experience, a shared experience. One of the things that I noticed, and I think this is part of the power of location-based experiences, is when people were done, because they would do it in groups of 4. When they were done, they would talk about their experience as well as the experience of the people that they had gone through in that story, as opposed to the story itself. And so they were engaged, I think, in a way that was unbelievably powerful. And I had this experience about a couple of years ago where my niece was graduating, and so the family had all gathered in Southern California, and I bought 8 tickets, so 2 groups of 4, for my family to experience Star Wars Secrets of the Empire. So there were 8 of them, so I didn't get to go. So I, and these are people from age 21 to 85. So I had the whole spectrum, and I don't think any of them had actually done virtual reality at that point. And when they came out, they would take, there was at the location, they would take a photograph. And I looked at these photographs and they're just beaming. They just had this awesome experience. And I think that those smiles and that kind of just really fulfilling experience where they were transported together to another world, really confirmed for me the power of location-based experiences. Now, obviously, COVID was a really big blow to location-based companies because, we literally, they were shut down. And so I think it's going to take a little bit of time for that to sort of, for people to re-engage and feel comfortable, but I'm confident that it will happen. And when it does, I really want to be there again, because we loved designing for location-based experiences. And, we also worked on the, Millennium Falcon ride at at Galaxy's Edge at Disneyland. So, and as Disneyland is opening back up and so forth, and people are beginning to have those experiences again. So, I'm a big fan of location-based XR experiences, let's call it. And I expect to see, sort of a resurgence of that in the future.
Right. Yeah, I hope things come back to normal and I hope things open up because, yes, that is a tool or a medium for people to experience stories, break down their reality and understand that, be actually in a story, experience, when what would it feel like to be in a movie. So would you like to talk about Alejandro Iñárritu's the Carne y Arena installation?
So Carne y Arena was actually one of the first experiences that we did. And as you mentioned in the introduction, it was the vision of, award-winning director Alejandro Iñárritu. And it was basically a VR installation. It was, I would argue, hyper reality because you went through the experience barefoot. You were in, there was sand on the floor. One of the things that was unique about Carne y Arena was it was quite a large space. So you were moving around in its initial implementation, like a 50 by 50 square foot space. It was very cold to sort of simulate what it's like to be in the desert at night. And the experience was really about a group of immigrants crossing the border from Mexico into the United States, seeking a better life. And they're caught. And what was interesting about Carne y Arena is you were an observer, but you were in the center of that scene. And it was incredibly visceral, and you actually felt as if you were there. So even though you were technically an observer, it was profoundly impactful. And there was a lot written about the experience, but my favorite quote was from the Toronto Star, and it was something to the effect of, it's an experience that lasts just 6.5 minutes, but it creates memories that last a lifetime. And I think it really did that. And it's funny, even when I talk, this is why I think location-based is so powerful. Even when I talk about this right now, and I haven't done it, in location for several years, I get chills because it created a memory that lives inside of me. And I still feel that experience in a way that I don't think any other entertainment or story-based experience has ever done. And it had such a profound impact on the people who had the opportunity to go through it. And it's actually now, we evolved it to a more current technology set. It's a little lighter setup and so forth. And it's coming back. So it's actually in Denver, Colorado right now, because a lot of people ask, when and how can I experience it? And I'm hoping that in time, more and more people can experience it. So we were just really, really privileged to have been able to be a part of that project.
Yeah, I think virtual reality is that tool which is going to completely transform our storytelling medium. I got into virtual reality in early 2015. We built our own stereoscopic rig, a 16-camera rig. I directed, produced India's first stereoscopic VR horror short film. When I put on the VR headset, I think I saw this VR film called Giant. It's an experience. It's a war experience. There's this family who's stuck in a basement. There's war going outside. And there's a young girl who's sitting and playing with her toy, and the parent are trying to hug and trying to console, thinking about the impending danger. That experience is so surreal. And even right now, I'm getting goosebumps because, for the first time, you are not watching a film, but you are in the film, and you could, connect with what those people would have been feeling, when they're caught in a scenario like that. Now, with the technology obviously is growing, and I think maybe in another couple of years, with haptic feedback and volumetric videos and artificial intelligence and brain-computer interface, I'm sure we will be, redefining what we call storytelling. So I am really, really excited of that. And that's the reason I do this podcast, so that I can share my excitement to the future content creators, the studios, the ad agencies. Are there any content creators, studios, or experiences which has really caught your attention and who you think are doing some really exceptional work?
A lot who inspired me quite a bit early on. I was interested in Chris Milk's work. I guess what I would say to people exploring this space is be bold, be courageous, try things, because there is no template, and I think we're only scratching the surface of what is possible in this space, and we will continue to see really wonderful and innovative and powerful pieces of content coming out in the years ahead. It's such a, I think of it as a brand new type of canvas on which to create. And sometimes I talk about it as like, I feel like there's a renaissance of creative opportunity that has been made possible by the emergence of XR.
Yeah, true that. Yeah. So Bollywood, it's among the largest film production in the world at this point in time. Are you looking at partnering or tying up with Indian content creators, studios? Are you exploring that opportunity?
There's no shortage of creators in India. And so I'm really excited to see what will come, because I think that I imagine that creators and studios in India are going to have an entirely new take on what's possible in this space, and I think it's going to be very, very exciting. So I really hope you're successful in encouraging people to branch out into XR.
Thank you. Yes, there are some interesting movements over here when it comes to virtual reality, and I hope that it comes together as a collective and accelerate this medium, and more people adopt this technology. What comes next for Ilmxlab, and what comes next for you?
At the moment, we're working on part 2 of Star Wars Tales from the Galaxy's Edge, which was our most recent title. And what was exciting about that is that we really expanded the boundaries of Black Spire Outpost and the planet Batuu. So what we sought to do is not in any way recreate what Walt Disney Imagineering had so beautifully done inside of Disneyland and Disney World with Galaxy's Edge, but rather to extend those boundaries beyond Black Spire Outpost and allow people to sort of continue their the experience. Actually, it could move either direction, right? But allow people to explore what is beyond the boundaries, and also to use the technology, to use VR to create experiences that would have been physically impossible, right? Either by laws of physics or even cost. And so I think that the combination of the physical world, Galaxy's Edge and Disneyland and Disney World, coupled with a VR experience that again extends that world, that was a really cool concept that we are now building upon. And I continue to be really interested in connected storytelling. So for us, it tends to be connected storytelling delivered via XR platforms, but it could be location-based VR and/or AR, and similarly home-based AR and VR. And also you were getting at it, because I think that in terms of Ilmxlab, we focus in 3 areas. The first is sort of home and daily lives. And when I say daily lives, we're not quite at daily lives yet, but eventually we want to design experiences that people might engage with on a daily basis. That might be characters, it might be characters and stories, etc. Then, and certainly, Vader Immortal and Tales from the Galaxy's Edge fall into that category. The second is spaces and places. And so this really speaks to your location-based experiences. And we've done, Star Wars Secrets of the Empire, Avengers Damage Control, and Ralph Breaks VR. And so I believe that will continue to evolve in new and exciting ways. And the third area is actually next-gen film and streaming. And I think this is kind of what we were talking about earlier, about what is it like to be in essentially in a movie. What does that mean when you can actually make choices? What does that look like? And I think, we're only starting to sort of think about what's possible there and what is compelling. But again, with those three areas of focus, and then thinking about the mosaic of experiences we can create, we want to, focus on social. We want to figure out how to deliver persistence so that, when you come back to an experience, it has evolved based on your prior experience. We want to figure out how to enable perhaps characters to go with you, across the different experiences. And, so we believe that the future is really going to be about social, stories that are personal, that are dynamic, and, I'm hoping are even sometimes transformational, like we were talking about with Carne y Arena and the project that you were involved in.
Lovely. Thank you. Really appreciate you being part of the podcast and wish you and your team the very best. And yes, like you said earlier during the conversation, I think the rules have been broken and COVID has been that catalyst. Social has become the biggest medium. We have short form, long format, content creation, the distribution and monetization is getting democratized. And there is so much opportunity which has been created. We are just scratching the surface. And I guess maybe in this decade itself, we will actually step into the content, start touching and feeling the digital. And the digital will be able to feel us, in ways which is unimaginable at this point in time. So that is exciting. And I hope this conversation inspires and nudges the listeners who are possibly the ad agencies, content creators, studios to explore this medium and tool and push their imagination and build content for the future, which creates deeper transformation. So thank you. Really appreciate you being part of the podcast. And to my listeners, if you like what you see in here, please press the subscribe button. Until next time, see you guys. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Eddie. It was a lot of fun, and I wish you all the best.